Okay.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Fabulous. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, we're here. It worked. Technology worked. Hi, everybody. I am Wendy, Stuart Kaplan, and this
and I'm Tim Moss, and we're so glad you're here for If These Walls Could Talk.
Oh my gosh, if they could talk, right? What would they say, Tim?
I'm kind of glad they can't.
I know, right? Their secrets will remain with us. How was your Thanksgiving, Tim? What did you do?
Wonderful. It was really nice. Yeah, I cooked for like 3 days. We had so much food in the kitchen.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that the best? And then you can have it for like the next week. There's nothing like reheated turkey.
Yes, exactly. So I scheduled different friends throughout the day. So I had like a 1 o'clock and then a 3 o'clock and then a 5 o'clock. And
Tim, you were auditioning. You were auditioning your Thanksgiving guests.
Yes, exactly. But it was lovely. How was yours?
Mine was just really quiet with a very small family, and rode the Long Island Railroad, which is always very interesting to me, but there was nobody on it. So that was cool. But you know what? I have a bunch of things I just wanted to talk about. Of Gay. We want to let everybody know you can access this show on Ike Avelli's page on Facebook, and it's on pay-per-view. All you got to do is click a little link, and we're in it, and so many great performers.
Oh, I watched it the other night. We got a little sneak preview, and oh my God, it's hysterical. It's wonderful.
Well, I would not expect anything less than hysterical from Ike Avelli and this whole cast of characters that we know. And Tim, you know, this was an exciting week for me because Hollywood Digest named me one of the 10 most beautiful women. Now I have to qualify that in a way that it's about women, real women that are doing all kinds of really great things to try and just change the world. You know, it's not about people that put makeup on or primp their hair, although we do all of that. But you know, like we're all trying. You could have been one of the 10 most beautiful women.
Yes, I guess so. As soon as that sex change comes through.
Well, I'm very excited about our guest today.
Oh, me too. Because Wendy, you are one of the original New York City club kids.
Unfortunately, Tim, I'm still one of the. I can't believe it. God,
we're the club adults now instead of club kids.
We are right. But our spirits are kids' spirits, you know, because we still listen. You still love going to clubs.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, yeah, when they're open, yeah.
Yeah, me too. And we're all raring to go here. So you know
one of New York City's top bars right now is ReBAR, and we have the owner with us,
Yay!
Franco Deluzio. Coming in at it. How are you, Franco?
Good. How are you?
Fabulous.
Really great to see you here today. Look at you in your tank top. You look the way you would look if I saw you in the bar. There you go.
Maybe closed right now, but we need all the promotion we can get.
Franco, can you get me a drink? I'd like a Cosmo.
I have a Cosmo right here, but he's not a drink. Say hi, Cosmo. Where is he? I lost him.
Speaking of Cosmo, that's your little Pomeranian. I love Cosmo.
You can't have more butch dog than a Pomeranian.
I love that you named your Pomeranian after a drink. Hi, Cosmo. How are you? So
when Cosmo comes by, just be sure to grab him so that he can get on camera.
Okay.
Okay. It's his moment to shine, but right now it's your moment to shine. So welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I'm sure somebody like you has tons of stories.
Funny because I'm actually writing a little memoir about stuff like that right now because in 20 years of working in bars in New York City, I've seen quite a lot.
God, imagine.
So 20 years of working in bars. So, you know, I know you from ReBAR, but what was your very first bar in New York?
The first place I ever worked, of course, was G Lounge, which went out of business in 2017. I partnered with some people. We took over, and as you know, Tim, you've seen it, is completely something new and different.
Yeah, and opened it as ReBAR. That's wonderful.
I mean, geez, I've worked at Roxy. I've worked at
I've
worked at Barracuda. No, excuse me, not Barracuda, Bartini.
Bartini, of course.
wherever people will pay me.
I thought you were going to say wherever was the hottest scene. I was a Thursday, Sunday girl at Roxy.
Okay.
I loved it. Thursday night, you would have, these guys come in with their girlfriends, right? All incredibly good looking, and they'd be flirting and everything. But those would be the same guys that came back on Sunday night to the gay night.
Yes, right.
With their boyfriends. I loved the Roxy. I really did. The sound, for me, the sound system, right? And dancing and everything.
Yeah, I can actually say I've had some of my best nights at the Roxy. I mean, literally 2 feet away from Madonna. When would she ever do something like that?
Stop.
We were literally on the stage where the go-go dancers perform. It was like 2 feet off the ground, and she was just right there.
Wow.
That has to be 2005 or 2006. And there was many nights when of course, scandalous Halloweens at the Roxy.
Well, let's hear about them. Come on.
Every year, I'm going to pre-pose this with, I was married to a woman for many years. And it was very corporate and very different than you know me now, Tim. And my first relationship as a gay man was a very flamboyant guy. He was beautiful, but we used to call him Miss John. He would do what we call androgynous drag now.
Yeah.
Right. Androgynous, of course, right.
Yeah, so we used to promote for a club called Shampoo in Philadelphia, and that's what actually gave me the little spark to be like, okay, you need to check this out a little bit. So I lived a very dual life. I did a really corporate job with IBM and then later some startup companies.
Wow.
During the day, and at night, I'd be wearing little go-go shorts and no shirt and sequin cowboy hats and whatever we dreamed up. And year after year, we would come to the Roxy for Halloween. This is back in 96, 97.
The late 90s.
Yeah, late 90s. And without fail, my ex was very flamboyant and very good at what he did. His ideas were amazing, but he needed someone to carry the idea through. And that was me. So I would make these elaborate costumes. And
fabulous.
1999, we did Village People 2000, even though it was 99. And we did all white and silver. And I was a corporate guy.
I was going to say, you were still at IBM when you were doing this, right?
He wanted a 3-foot high Indian headpiece because he was going to be. So I was like, okay, let me think about this.
As Felipe Rose.
It would have been Felipe Rose, right?
Yeah, I just started gluing feathers with a hot glue gun. Took me like 5 hours, but this was spectacular. When we go to take it off his head, I had hot glue gunned it to his hair.
Oh.
I had to take a
Oopsie. Wow.
He was sporting a very, very short hairstyle.
But Franco, beauty knows no pain. Admit it, it was worth it.
No, the best part of that was we were moving. I was the cowboy, he was the Indian. One of our friends was.
You were Randy Jones.
And one was the sailor. And all in white and silver. And we never thought in a million years we'd get up there. Well, that year, 5 years in a row, we were on the stage of the top 5.
How cool is that? Wow.
And this is what gave me the bug of doing promotions and nightlife. And
it's so much fun. There's so much fun in nightlife.
Well, to this day, I still do all of the costuming and everything for ReBAR. We don't believe in just throwing up some flags for Pride. We've had a theme every year.
Love it.
1 year. Last year we did Under the Rainbow. Literally, the entire bar was a rainbow. It was
fabulous.
Did you see that? It's funny because I shouldn't say this. This is going to sound wrong.
You can say anything you want here.
Owners of other bars were calling our drag queens up to find out who did our staging and our styling for all of these events. They wanted to hire them. And I was like, I really don't have the time to do it.
So Franco, when did you obviously left your corporate job for the club world and to produce these events with costuming and sets and everything. When did you leave your corporate job?
Well, the true corporate job I left back in like 2005 and took a job with an event planning business. So it's still kind of corporate.
Yeah,
but I went on the business side of it just to get my foot in the door. So I was doing more of the sales part of it. And when the owner saw the creative side that I had, because I would sit down with somebody and just draw a room and is this what you're looking for? And that was the beginning of every project that I sold. So I started doing that and got into the creative side. And then I started dating my ex-husband, who worked for G Lounge at the time. And he's like, you need to do a party here. And we started in 2005, Gorgeous with DJ Lena.
Oh, I love DJ Lena.
I got so much shit from the guys that own G Lounge because they were in their earlier days, they were very known to be where all the beautiful men went and where they got a really bad rap of, it's not interesting. It's very stand and pose. If you're not pretty, you can't go there.
So, wasn't that John Blair?
No. G Lounge was the guys that used to own, not Cafeteria. What was the name of the little place?
The Kitchen?
No, right on. It's a Chipotle now, which is terrible.
Oh my God.
Gosh, I can't remember the name. It was like everybody went there because it was a restaurant that was like a nightclub. And I can't think of the name of it now, but that's how they got into the bar business.
Okay.
And they took me in, they're like, look, Thursday nights are kind of fizzling out. And it was the first time I've ever done anything myself, other than costuming for me and my friends. And so I came up with hired DJ Lena, and our first ad, he's like, well, we don't want to name the party Gorgeous because we've already got this attitude of being pretentious. I'm like, look, trust me on this because we're going to go to the tongue-in-cheek side of it. And the first ad was a woman with bandages on her face with these big red lips, and in lipstick written on the bandage was Gorgeous. The Go-Go Boys were probably 90 pounds each. They were these little Twinkie boys. Yes, like not what you see in a club, like the big pretentious, you're afraid to talk of them. And that's what gave me the spark to do it. From that point on, I still kept a corporate job. And, I've probably produced 10 or 12 different parties. I've worked with Steve at the Saint at Large to do Black Party and promote with them. Eric on Kirshner out in Fire Island when he used to do his parties out there.
Of course.
Lake Party in Palm Springs. I've never really worked in Florida, but it was a fun ride. I'm glad I'm doing it for myself now because it's tough watching all your hard work make people a lot of money and you're going, I got
and you're not getting anything.
Right.
So when did ReBAR is your baby that you gave birth to. When did you what were you thinking when you made that leap? That's a lot of risk.
Yeah, that's a big decision.
Yeah, I sold almost everything I own, including my soul, to open this bar. And I have some really good, solid business partners. And I left my corporate job in March of 2017.
Oh my gosh, this has not even been that long. I'm in awe of you sitting here.
Everyone used to think I did so many events at G Lounge back in the day. Everyone thought I was the owner, and I'm like, I wish I was the owner, but I'm not. But I've been very fortunate because the bar was doing really well before COVID, and I was able to bank a lot of bucks, which I'm living on now because as an owner, we get paid dividends, not salaries, so we're really not getting employment. The government really just is letting us die because the PPP loan we were given, you apply, they give you what they feel is appropriate. It lasted 6 weeks. So we were able to pay our employees for 6 weeks. And you can imagine what a New York City rent is.
Yeah.
So on our space, it covered a quarter of 1 month's rent. So you're only allowed 20% of the loan.
Isn't that's just incredible. I mean, I feel they cut bait on the entertainment industry, including the bars, the restaurants, the actors. It's absolutely awful.
The theater,
being in New York, and I'm sure you both know many people that have either been ill or, God forbid, passed away. But I physically know in person 8 people that have passed away from COVID.
Oh my
Two
God.
of them were employees at my bar. My best friend
Wow.
will never be the same. He was a really gifted surgeon, one of the top in the country. And while he was in the hospital on a ventilator, he had a stroke. So,
My God.
and we really lucked out. And I know this is weird for anyone who has to deal with real estate in New York, but our landlord was really a mensch. Hey, Cosmo, give me that toy.
Good. Yeah, here, Cosmo.
He was a mensch. We went to him and said, look, we can't pay this rent, and we really don't want to open. We don't believe in this 25% indoor capacity because
right.
So we worked out a really good deal with him, and until we can get everything in a safer state, he's not charging us rent. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
Right. Let's give a round of applause. Yeah. You know what, Franco, you're talking about something that we know needs to happen more, but when it is happening, I love hearing about it. I know Tim does, you know.
Absolutely.
There are good people out there.
Well, he even said, because remember that G Lounge was there for 20 years, and we've been there for 4 years now, going on 4 years.
Right.
And he said, I've been with you for a quarter of a century. Who's going to rent this big of a space during a pandemic? I would rather know you're coming back than this space sits open for the next 5 years and I make nothing.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. See, that's the way I see it. And we're watching so much of the LGBT community and their institutions, their bars, their clubs, the restaurants that are just closing one after the next.
Left and right.
Because of greed, basically.
Right.
That the landlords a lot of times want to keep adding rent on top of rent on top of rent with no income coming in for the club or for the bar.
Well, that's what happened with
the owner of where you're at is a wise person, because the way I see it, because that's what I've said, is they need to give some type of concession during these extraordinary times we're in. Because would you rather have 50% of something or 100% of nothing?
Yeah.
But so many of them, look at all the warehouse spaces. I mean, my neighborhood, the East Side, one restaurant after the next.
Wow.
Out of business. And I agree with Tim. Maybe, Franco, do you understand the thinking behind of having a space empty for 5 years as opposed to what your landlord's doing with you? You're a sure bet. Your club was successful before COVID. It will be successful again. Better to bet on the horse that you know is going to come in the race, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. And he, it still didn't take it. I mean, that obviously was our biggest nut for the business. But, there's other things that come into it, like all of the leases on the equipment that we have.
Oh,
wow.
There's been nothing to give assistance to small businesses. You get someone like Robert De Niro, who gets $128 million in PPP funds for Nobu, or even worse, the Catholic Church that got $1.2 billion by applying at every, what do they call it? It's not a district. What do they call the churches? Every church applied as a separate small business.
The diocese.
Diocese. Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. My mother, if she's watching, will be very upset that the Catholic.
Your Italian mother would be very upset with you.
Well, actually, if you don't mind, can we rewind and go back to the beginning? Tell us about Franco. Like, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was your school experience like? All of that.
Sicily, 19.
Yeah.
Where on the boot were you, Franco?
We weren't really on the boot. We were kind of on the stone that was getting kicked by the boot. So my grandparents are from Sicily. They came here between 1910 and 1918.
Oh, wow.
And,
both courageous people, that took so much courage.
Yeah, they didn't have educations. They didn't have money. They just came here, and
they didn't speak the language either.
No, my grandma didn't speak the language. I think almost to the day she died. She had a very heavy accent, but I was fortunate to grow up in a multi-generational household.
Nice.
My parents were both blue collar. My dad decided school wasn't for him, so at 17 he told his mother he was going to drop out, and she's like, well, as long as you get your GED. And he got his GED. And she said, well, you're not staying in my house and not working, so you have to go into the armed services.
That's
and
what
he
they
said, okay, I'm going into the Air Force. And she said, no, you're going into the Marines. So at 17 she had to sign him in, which was fortunate for him because he got out just before Vietnam started.
Oh, wow.
By doing that 1 year early, got him out right before the war started, because they would have actually held him. And my mom was
were you in New Jersey?
Dropout, but she was a beauty school.
Were you in New York or New Jersey?
No, my grandparents went to Philadelphia.
Philly.
So my parents, at 21 and 23, when they got married, when you're a young couple and it's like a weekend, let's go do. My mom's like, oh, there's this new community they're building in New Jersey. It's brand new houses. Let's go look. We can't afford it, but it'll just be something to do.
Right. I love that.
I do it all the time, actually. I go to open houses in New York that I do.
Oh, you're one of those.
Here you own a bar in the co-ops. You're like, we don't want you to come in. So anyway, it was the last house in a community that was built. And my mom, of course, fell in love with it. 21 years old. Who doesn't want a 3,000 square foot brand new contemporary home? And she looked at my dad and said, oh, Frank, I really want it, which my dad should have known was the phrase he heard all the time when mom really wanted something. And they bought it. He said it was, the guy asked him, my dad said, how much you have to put down? The guy said, what do you have in your pocket? My dad said $50, and that's what they put down on the house. So.
Wow. What a great story, right? And they got a 3,000 square foot house with $50 down. You can't beat that.
It was $13,000 brand new. And the best part of it was when they went to qualify for the mortgage, they wouldn't count my mother because she was of childbearing years. So even though she made just as much as my dad, they said, you're going to have a baby and you're going to quit your job, which she had to quit her job. So, and there dad passed a couple years ago, but mom is still in the house, and it's
still in that house. I love it.
$13,000 when they bought it, and now it's almost $400,000. So
yeah,
good investment. You just had to hang on long enough, right?
Yeah, where were they going to go? My parents were. You don't find they're the people that gave me the failure is not an option, and work as hard as you have to work to get something. Nobody's going to give it to you for free. And
so it's interesting, Franco. You came from a blue-collar Italian Catholic background. That you went into the corporate world, right? You wanted something different than, more structure than a blue-collar job.
Yeah, my poor dad. I watched him work his ass off. He was a mechanic in the Marines. When he got out, he became a heavy line mechanic for a company called Crown Cork and Steel, which is still around. He retired after 30 years at Crown, got a full pension, and then took a job as a janitor in the school where my mom worked in her later years. So after another 15 years there, he got another full pension. So very smart, very hard worker.
Yeah.
Coming out
Tim, we're actors. We don't have anything like that.
Yeah, right. What's a pension?
Nothing.
Well, you know what? None of us will see anything like that because, my mom, now that dad's passed, she's got two of my dad's pensions, her own pension, and her Social Security. She lost dad's Social Security when he passed, but they bumped it up to be equal because his Social Security was a little more than hers. So, Mom, God bless her. She's doing fine. So
she's living large. Right? God bless.
I always find it interesting, like people's coming out stories. Like growing up in an Italian Catholic family in New Jersey. When did you realize that you were gay, and how did your parents react when you told them?
That's always a tough question because
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what gay was.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
I never saw it. I had
Yep.
on my mom's side of the family, we had Graham and Joey, and they were friends that lived together on a horse farm in Pennsylvania. They raised thoroughbreds.
Uh-huh.
They weren't flamboyant. They weren't, and my mom would always mention the word gay because she was a hairstylist. So she had a lot of
Okay.
gay friends, but
Uh-huh.
I really met them. So I never knew. And when I went to college, I was dating men and women. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Why do I know? Because I was a very late bloomer.
Uh-huh.
And lo and behold, my first therapist told me, you're bisexual. Okay. I believe in bisexuality. And he's like, your problem that you're having is not being with men or being with women. It's that you want a monogamous, stable relationship. So meet somebody, whether it's a man or a woman, and explore it. And literally, like 2 days later, I met my ex-wife, and that's the direction I went with it.
Wow.
So, I don't know how I would identify. I would definitely identify myself as gay now. I just wasn't very enlightened as to myself. I didn't put a lot of work into that because I think a lot of it was trying to meet the expectations that were set by that Italian American,
Right.
Blue collar. Like I had to exceed at everything. All being the oldest son too. But my dad, as I said, he was a first generation American Marine, mechanic. He was my football coach. My dad, after I quit playing football, he coached for 38 more years, and he was
that is like the epitome of a macho man.
Yeah, right.
So, but how did he take your being?
Well, to say that I was a mama's boy would be an understatement because my mom and I were like this. My dad would always say, Jack, cut the apron strings, let him go. So the day I told him, I was divorced from my ex-wife for about a year, and I met Miss John, who we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And
I brought Miss John around a couple times to the family, and no clue. I figured if I brought someone that flamboyant, they would be like, what's going on here? But not a clue. And he one day said, I can't go to Christmas we were together for a little over a year. And he's like, I can't go to Christmas to your family. I said, why? He's like, because I feel like I'm lying to them. And I really love your parents. They're great people. And unless you tell them what our relationship is. At first I was like, you can't force me to come out. But then I thought, okay, at this point I'm 30 years old.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So you were 30. That's late. Wow.
No better time than the present. So my dad and I are very similar, and we both have very sarcastic sense of humor. We bust each other's chops all the time. So I went over and I sat down and we're just talking. They had already had dinner with my siblings. And I said, so I have something to talk to you about. And my mom's like, oh, you want cake? You want coffee?
Yeah. Always feeding the Italian mom.
How about a glass of amaretto? I'm like, no, I'm really good. So my dad's like, what do you need to talk about? Well, I'm gay.
Oh.
And my dad just went, why do you always have to fuck around with me? What do you want to talk about? I'm like,
wow.
In the meantime, mom has stopped. She's frozen. And I'm like, Dad, I'm gay. He's like, come on, stop. Tell me what you want to talk about. I'm like, Dad, I'm gay. And it was simultaneous, but it seemed like it was forever. Dad said, okay, you're my son. I love you. I just want you to be happy. And my mother put the coffee pot and the cup down. She runs upstairs. She comes back down with the big Bible, and you're in trouble when the big Bible.
The big Bible, wow.
Puts it on the table, and she's flip. And she's like, right there. And I'm like, right there what? She's like, a man cannot lay with another man. Okay. And so we talked about it for a little bit, and she had a really hard time. Thankfully for me, my mom, again, is very religious. She went to a retreat to pay for the sin of bringing a gay son into the world. And in this retreat, we had to clean. It was a Franciscan friars retreat. And you had to be, for my mom, like made to be quiet for 2 full days. Very difficult. And so you couldn't speak. You had to just clean the whole time you were there. You got your meals. You went to church 3 times a day. And at the end of your 2 days there, you got a confession face to face with the head friar. Well, the head friar was Father Julian, and he was 87 years old, and he had a heart arrhythmia and had to be rushed to the hospital. So the man that stood in was brother. I don't think he was a father. I think he was called Brother Rick, and he was in his 30s. So it was a whole different perspective.
Yes.
Of course,
and,
right.
My mom said she sat down and he said, "What's your sin, sister?" And she said she just burst out into tears and said, "I brought a gay son into the world." And he went and knelt in front of her and grabbed her hand and said, "Mother, do you love your son?" And she said, "Father, I love my son with all my being." And he said, "That's all that God asks, is for you to love your son."
What an amazing memory.
So, I mean, talk about luck of the draw. I'm sorry, Father Julian went to the hospital, but it could have turned out completely.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. It's interesting what you're saying, Franco, because of your 2 parents, your mother she was a hairdresser and knew about gay and was around gay people. Of the 2 parents, right? Dad was mechanic. I would have expected your mom to be the open one and your dad not to be the open one. It's funny how it turned out.
With most of my friends that I've spoken to, the father has been much more understanding than the mother.
Interesting.
Not with mine.
No,
mine was the opposite. My father was the one that got up, walked out, grabbed the Bible, and slammed it down in front of me. And, it was like and he was like, "Turn to Leviticus such and such and read it." And I was okay, man laying with another man or abomination or something. And then he's like, "Turn to Galatians." And I was like, "Is that the old or the new?" "It's the New Testament." I'm sorry, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Listen, I was so lucky, Tim, that when John was introduced finally as my boyfriend, we were talking about some of our friends who were disowned by their parents for being gay. And now mom is completely, a priest has told her it's okay to have a gay son.
The church is blessing. Yep.
Like, well, that's ridiculous. What kind of parent would disown their son for blah, 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 blah? So my mom started having us invite any friends who couldn't afford to travel home.
Oh, how wonderful.
And we used to call, well, we still do. We this year we did not have any friends over because of COVID. It was just a really smooth. But it's been anywhere from, I'd say, 30 people down to maybe 18 people. And of that, maybe 5 or 6 gay men, gay women, transsexuals, friends who just didn't have a place to go. And my parents are really the bomb because they welcome.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear.
Your story has such a happy ending, which is really, really great. There are people that still struggle, right, Tim, with their parents not accepting. And a lot of them, I have to tell you, Franco, are Italian Catholic. All right, there's that whole thing.
Also, I mean, our generation, I mean, we didn't, like you said, we didn't have any guidance. We didn't have gay people on television. We didn't have rule books to guide us, and our parents and family kind of came along with that. We exposed them to all this new questionable, we were learning ourselves about our sexuality, and then we would share it and expose our immediate family to it a lot of times, and friends. And it was all new to them at the time. They had never heard of it and didn't know what to say or what to do a lot of times.
Franco, you were very fortunate, in the therapist that you went to said to you, explore, no judgments, explore, which I take be fluid, be whoever you want to be, no judgments. That is really great to have a therapist that's supportive that way.
Mm-hmm.
I should have explored a little more because I was so desperate to meet that. My dad was 24 when he got married. I wanted to be married at 24.
Oh, that expectation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to not only have a house, but a house bigger than those.
Mm-hmm.
And what I forgot to add in there was the 4 years of college that kind of
Yeah.
the whole timeline back.
Right.
And honestly, I think had I not gotten married and explored a little more, I think I would have wound up with a guy and not a woman because.
But everybody's journey is different, and that is your journey, and there was a reason for that. So yeah, it's.
And also, I'm very much the type of person that has to say, I tried it, it didn't work.
Yes, exactly.
That's okay, right? That's okay. At least you tried it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're divorced now. You're with a man. Did you start coming into New York City and hitting the clubs at all during that time, like Studio 54 or?
I came into the clubs like the late 80s.
Okay.
Brunswick.
Uh-huh.
All of my friends were straight, so we did most of the straight scene.
Okay.
Wow.
The late 90s when I started coming to the gay clubs and totally different scene here.
The scene was totally different than, because you have to think about, I came in the late 70s. I was Studio 54, 1977, right? And I am not kidding you, really, till this day, out at clubs 2 nights out of the week. That's my MO. I never thought about getting married or having a house with a white picket fence. I just want to dance and party. But when you came, I had been through the whole AIDS epidemic. I personally, and Tim, you know this, so damaged by the amount of people that I lost, that all of you that were going to clubs in the 90s, I did go like every other week, but I totally lost my mojo. You came on the tail end of the whole AIDS epidemic, Franco. I want to ask you, how did that affect you at the time?
Well, listen, I actually go back to the phrase that I live by, that everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe, had I gone to the dating men first, that I'd be dead right now.
Yep. I understand that.
I was never quite cautious with women, and I know I wouldn't have been men either. So again, everything happens for a reason. I have many, I have been very fortunate to not have any friends die of AIDS. I have many friends that are positive. I have several exes that are positive and undetectable.
Just amazing.
It's totally a different time period, and I'm fortunate that I wasn't dealing with it, because it was, when I started in the mid 90s, late 90s, when I came out, my boyfriend and I had an open relationship, and we were both such OCD germaphobes that anytime we hooked up with somebody, it was almost like gargling with bleach when you came home, like that was going to do anything. So the times are different. There's still a lot out there that people have to worry about. I see a lot of the kids now that just don't care. PrEP is out there.
They've got PrEP and they've got PEP. I just learned about PEP. They just
PEP is post-exposure. If you have an incident and you feel like you've been exposed to HIV, you take it for 30 days. And,
I know all about it. It's like, so you're right. They don't care. They're just going to do
different mindset about it.
Most people are on PrEP now, which is you're on that medication from now until forever. So So do whatever you want. And when I was, several boyfriends ago, he was positive. So that's what prompted me to go on PrEP. So we could have a more intimate relationship together instead of always having to use protection. So, life's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the journey, ReBAR, let's talk ReBAR. Actually, I think the first time we met, ReBAR was up for a Glam Award. And
Yeah.
I put a video together where I went to all of the, I think 9 or 10 clubs around town that were nominated. And Franco was so cool. He was like, sure, come on in. Let's see, and that was so great. And
It was a fun night, Tim.
at ReBAR, the video, I have a go-go boy turned around the other way over here and turned around the other way over here. I've got a butt over here and a butt over here.
I love it.
There's a lot of butts in my face.
I had been to ReBAR on my own, but I went with Tim less than a year ago. And what was it? It was
Kareem Jagger. One of his.
I love Kareem. He's so fun.
Yeah.
It was what was it? It was
the towel party?
It was towel night. Steam towel night.
We did so well that night. It was cute, but I mean, literally, that was, I think, the week, like 2 weeks before maybe COVID.
Yes, it was getting there. But Wendy got kicked out of one of the rooms.
I did. I had a couple of drinks, and I've been going to gay bars for 40 years, so I don't think anything of, I'll go wherever I go. And they're like, you can't be in here. I realized that's where everyone was getting rid of their clothes and putting their towels on.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Wendy. I know of no such thing at the bar.
It was so funny.
But
listen,
ReBAR,
if you could see the things that go on, I've watched couples hook up for the first time there. I've watched couples break up there.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's interesting. I've seen some of the funniest things. I remember. You guys remember G Lounge, the round bar?
Yeah, of course.
My ex-husband, again, the guy that brought me into nightlife, he was a manager there. And on a Tuesday night, I would go and we would sit and we would play hangman because it was a little slow Tuesday night. And we'd play hangman on napkins. And there was these 2 drag queens where the DJ booth was towards the back of the bar. And a patron walks over and says to Mark, "Are you the manager?" He says, "Yes." He's like, "Well, I just thought I'd have to let you know, one of those drag queens just took a piss all over the floor."
Oh.
And Mark walks over and she's literally standing in a giant pool of what looks to be urine. So Mark doesn't do any investigation. He's just grossed out by it. He walks over and says, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave." And she's offended. She's like, "Excuse me, what did I do?" He's like, "You know what you did." And she's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he points down at what he thinks is urine. And she gets her fingernail and she's pointing it into his head like this. She's like, "I am not leaving. You cannot make me leave." So Mark grabs her arm from here and tries to pull it around her back. And they slip and they both fall into the urine.
Oh my God.
Now security's carrying this drag queen out, and her friend is hitting the security guard with her purse. We get them out the door to talk to them, and she's like, "I don't understand why I got thrown out of there." And he's like, "You urinated all over the floor." And she goes like this, "No, my water balloon broke."
Oh!
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
It's too funny.
That's great.
I love it because there's things that happen that I write on Facebook. I do Daddy Chronicles. Every once in a while, I'll put a Daddy Chronicle about something that happens. And I have to be really careful because I don't want someone to read it and be offended. So I don't use names or anything. But one night I'm standing there and I was talking to a really beautiful guy. He was there by himself. It was a slow night. We weren't started yet. It was around maybe 9:30, so the night hadn't gotten started. So we're talking, and in walks this little group of early 20-something Twinkie boys. And they come on, and 3 of them just stop, and they're like, "Oh, my God," to me. "Your arms are so big." I was much bigger back then. And I just laugh it off. I'm like, "Thank you very much, but his arms are bigger." So try to get them to now go over to this guy. And the 4th guy says, "Why are we talking to this old man? Can we go talk to someone cute?"
Oh.
The 3 friends say, "Oh, stop, look how cute he is." So we're talking, and I said, "I'm going to go get a drink at the bar. Can I get you guys something?" So the group of 4 guys gives me their order. I come back with 4 drinks. one to the 3 nice guys and one for myself.
Ah!
And the nasty one says, well, where's my drink? I'm like, oh, I'm so old. I couldn't hear you drink that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Now show us the arms. We got to see the guns. Show us.
Yeah.
Now.
I want to talk about your gym routine. How many times a week do you work out?
Well, right now I try to go 7 days a week because I feel that one, I'm not working, so I have plenty of time on my
You go
hands.
7 days a week.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I feel COVID bloated because I don't move all day. I try to walk the dog, but he might be a little prissy, so he doesn't really like to go out so much. And he has to have shoes or he won't walk on the ground outside.
I love it.
Living in Harlem with a Pomeranian, shoes, it gets a little dicey sometimes.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're running out of time, but firstly, thank you so much for coming on, Franco. This was so wonderful. But
Franco, you're terrific.
A little bit more info on ReBAR, the location, if there's a website, and when you're planning on opening.
Yeah, we're at 225 West 19th Street between 7th and 8th Avenues. We are all prepared to open, but again, for the safety of our staff and for the community, I really don't think we're going to be open until April probably of next year.
Okay.
I mean, we've done all the new filters, the new HVAC system.
Yeah, you had to put that all in, right?
Yeah, now I'm thinking, oh my God, we spent all that money and we probably won't need it when we open.
Yeah.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
Keep an eye out because I might have some new things coming out in Hell's Kitchen.
Sweet. And I can't wait. I also can't wait to see what new creative ideas for parties and everything that you come up with, because you've got such a creative mind. And I would love to be a part of that, of the resurgence of nightlife in New York City.
Oh,
and
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hope we can all get together for a drink real soon. So
actually, we shall. That much we can guarantee you, Franco. So, Tim, you'll get in touch with Franco about that. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Franco Deluzio, thank you so very much. Again, the owner of ReBAR. Is there a website?
ReBARChelsea.com.
ReBARChelsea.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
we're a little out of date right now, but check out our Facebook page. That's always up to date.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Perfect. Cool.
Well, from Tim Moss and
Wendy Stuart,
we want to thank Franco Deluzio for being our wonderful guest today on If These Girls Could Talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Franco. Wait, we didn't get to see the dog. Cosmo, can you come over and say hello to everybody out there? Can I have my dog, please?
Yeah, let's see if Nugget's there. Oh, there's Cosmo. Yeah. Oh, looking all fabulous.
Cosmo.
Oh, Tim, you're going to have to get a dog. Here
Nugget.
There's Nugget.
Oh, no.
So we're going to get you a stuffed dog. So when we sign off, you have a...
I actually just bought a stuffed Pomeranian for my niece for Christmas.
Oh. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Franco. And thank you, Cosmo. Love you.
Bye. Bye.
Take care.